Every Sunday, 100 million people gather around glowing screens to watch men collide. And somewhere in the silence of an empty room, someone sits alone listening to the distant roar of a world they'll never enter. There's a particular kind of quiet that settles over a house on Sunday afternoon in America. Not the peaceful quiet of morning, not the contemplative silence of midnight. This is something else, something heavier. It's the quiet of being awake while the world dreams the same dream without you. The television stays dark. The phone doesn't buzz with group chat messages about fourth-quarter drives or controversial calls. There are no jerseys hanging in the closet, no foam fingers collecting dust in the garage, no calendar marked with circled dates that mean everything to someone somewhere but nothing here. This isn't a story about football. Football is just the stage. This is a story about the psychology of standing outside, about the peculiar architecture of a mind that watches the watchers, that hears the collective heartbeat, and chooses consciously or not to let their own heart beat to a different rhythm. This is about the people who don't watch the NFL and about what that silence reveals. Picture a Monday morning in October. The office break room smells like burnt coffee and microwaved leftovers. Around the coffee maker, a small crowd has formed. They're animated, alive with the electricity of shared experience. Did you see that catch? I can't believe they went for it on fourth down. My fantasy team is killing me this week. Their voices overlap, a symphony of belonging. And there, at the edge of the room, pouring coffee in silence, is the person who has nothing to contribute. They smile, they nod. They've learned the art of appearing engaged while being fundamentally absent. They've mastered the small lie I missed. It fell asleep early. That closes the door on further questions without admitting the deeper truth. The deeper truth is this: they didn't miss it. They were never there to begin with. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung spoke of persona, the mask we wear to navigate the social world. But what happens when the mask doesn't fit the ceremony? When the tribe gathers for its most sacred ritual and you discover you don't speak the language, you learn to translate. You learn to survive in the margins of a conversation that wasn't built for you. The thing about mass cultural phenomena is that they create an invisible geography. There are territories of shared reference landmarks of collective memory. The Immaculate Reception, the catch, 28-3. These phrases are coordinates on a map that millions can navigate blindfolded. They're more than moments, they're mythology. But for those who don't watch, these coordinates point nowhere. The map is blank. And when everyone around you is navigating by stars you've never learned to read, you begin to question whether you're looking at the wrong sky. Let's go deeper. Let's ask the uncomfortable question: why? Why do some minds recoil from what others embrace? Why does the spectacle that unites millions leave others cold, confused, or quietly resistant? The easy answers are surface level. I don't like sports. It's boring. I have better things to do. These are the answers we give at parties, the social shortcuts that end the conversation. But beneath them lies something more complex, more vulnerable. For some, the rejection is intellectual. They see the NFL as a distraction, a Roman circus designed to pacify the masses while empires crumble. They see the violence, the commercialism, the commodification of human bodies. They see the concussions swept under million-dollar contracts, the nationalism wrapped in entertainment, the way the spectacle devours Sunday after Sunday like a hungry god demanding sacrifice. These are the conscientious objectors. They've done the math and decided the cost is too high. But for others, and this is where it gets interesting, the disconnection isn't ideological, it's neurological, it's psychological. It's about the fundamental architecture of how their brains process meaning and connection. The psychiatrist Bessel Kolk writes about how trauma reshapes the nervous system, how some people's threat detection systems become so finely tuned that they can't relax into collective experiences. The roar of the crowd, the unpredictability of the game, the emotional volatility of watching something you can't control. For some nervous systems, this isn't entertainment. It's overstimulation bordering on overwhelm. They watch others get swept up in the drama and feel nothing. Or worse, they feel the absence of feeling, the ghost of a response that should be there but isn't. And that absence becomes its own kind of pain. Jung called it the shadow, the parts of ourselves we don't recognize, don't accept, don't integrate. For the person who doesn't watch the NFL, the shadow might be their own alienation, their inability to lose themselves in something larger, their stubborn, painful individuality that refuses to dissolve into the collective. They watch the watchers and wonder, what's wrong with me? Let's trace it back. Let's dig into the sediment of memory. There's often a moment, a single point where the divergence begins. Maybe it's childhood. You're 7 years old, and your father invites you to watch the game with him. It's supposed to be a bonding ritual, a passing of the torch. He's excited, animated, pointing at the screen and explaining plays you don't understand. You try. You really try. But the colors blur together, the rules make no sense, and all you can think about is the book you were reading before he called you downstairs. You see the disappointment flicker across his face when you ask if you can go back to your room. It's brief, barely a second, but you catch it. And something inside you learns that your interests, your way of being, are somehow insufficient, that you've failed at something you didn't even know was a test. Or maybe it's adolescence, high school. The football players walk through the halls like gods, and everyone else orbits around them. The cheerleaders, the band, the entire social hierarchy built on Friday night lights. And you're elsewhere. In the art room, in the library, in the computer lab building worlds no one will see. You learn that the things that matter to you don't matter to the world. That passion is only valid when it's directed at sanctioned targets. That to be different is to be deficient. Or maybe it's later. Adulthood. You move to a new city, start a new job, and realize that so much of American male bonding, so much of the social currency that buys you entrance into rooms and conversations, is fluency in sports. The ability to trade statistics, debate, draft picks, commiserate over losses like they're personal tragedies. Without that fluency, you're a foreigner, polite but separate, included but not belonging. The philosopher Albert Camus wrote about the absurd, the fundamental disconnect between our need for meaning and the universe's indifference. But there's another kind of absurd, the disconnect between your need for meaning and your culture's insistence that meaning should be found in a particular place. Everyone's looking at the same thing, finding the same joy, speaking the same language, and you're standing there looking at the same thing and seeing nothing, feeling nothing, or feeling something entirely different. Confusion, boredom, a vague sense of guilt that you're supposed to care but don't. The silence isn't just about not watching football. It's about being fluent in a language of experience that your culture has deemed fundamental to belonging and discovering you're illiterate. Here's what they don't tell you about standing outside. You see things the people inside can't see. When you're not caught up in the game, you notice the mechanism, the way emotions are manufactured and manipulated, the way storylines are crafted to keep people hooked season after season, the way hope and heartbreak are products carefully packaged and sold. You see, the people around you ride an emotional roller coaster for 3 hours, their entire mood dictated by the performance of strangers wearing their city's colors. You see, grown adults scream at televisions, throw remotes, punch walls, their nervous systems hijacked by events they have zero control over. And part of you thinks, this is insane. But another part of you, the shadow part, the hidden part, thinks, what must it be like to care that much, to lose yourself so completely? Because here's the secret, they carry the people who don't watch. Sometimes the disconnection isn't a choice. Sometimes it's a wound. Sometimes it's the result of growing up in a home where emotions weren't safe, where letting yourself care about anything made you vulnerable to having it taken away or mocked. So you learn not to care. You learn to observe from a distance, to keep your investment low, to never let anything matter too much. The NFL, with its manufactured drama and collective hysteria, asks for exactly what you've spent your life learning, to withhold emotional investment in something beyond your control. It's not that you don't want to connect. It's that you've forgotten how, or never learned, or learned too well that connection comes with a cost you can't afford to pay. Psychologists call this attachment theory, how early relationships shape our capacity for connection throughout life. Some people develop secure attachments. They can lean into experiences, trust in outcomes, invest emotionally without fear of annihilation. Others develop avoidant attachments. They keep their distance. They maintain control by refusing to need. They watch others form bonds with people, with teams, with shared cultural touchstones, and feel a mixture of confusion and envy. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre said hell is other people, but maybe hell is watching other people find heaven in something you can't access. Watching them belong to something larger than themselves while you remain stubbornly, painfully individual. There's a moment that comes usually late at night when the games are over and the world has returned to its baseline hum. You're scrolling through your phone or staring at the ceiling or standing at your window looking at the houses where lights are still on, where people are still rehashing plays and debating calls, where the collective dream is still being dreamed. And you feel it, the ache, not for football, you've never cared about football, but for the thing football represents, for the ease of belonging, for the simple gift of caring about what everyone else cares about, for the relief of not having to explain yourself or translate yourself or apologize for yourself. You feel the weight of your own consciousness, the burden of seeing things differently, the exhausting labor of constructing your own meaning in a world that offers you a perfectly good meaning and can't understand why you won't just take it. And here's the thing that breaks you, the realization that cracks you open. You're not better than them. You're not more enlightened or intellectual or free. You're just different. And different in this context means alone. The poet Rilke wrote, "Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage." But what if the dragon isn't something outside you? What if the dragon is your own inability to connect your own defense mechanisms, your own fear of caring too much, of losing control, of letting yourself be swept up in something larger? What if the dragon is the wall you've built to protect yourself, and you've been standing on the wrong side of it all along? But here's where the story shifts, where the light changes, because there's another truth about the people who don't watch the NFL, a quieter truth, a more subversive truth. They've found other things. While the world is watching football, they're reading books that change their lives. They're having conversations that matter. They're creating art-building projects, exploring ideas that can't be measured in yards or points. They're not disconnected from everything. They're disconnected from this particular thing. And in that disconnection, they've discovered alternative forms of meaning, alternative modes of belonging. The Sunday quiet that once felt like exile has become sanctuary. The absence of noise has made space for other voices, internal voices, creative voices, voices that speak in whispers and can only be heard in silence. They've learned to build cathedrals instead of attending them, to create rituals instead of inheriting them, to find the sacred in the specific rather than the universal. And maybe, just maybe, this is its own form of courage. The courage to be alone, the courage to trust your own experience even when it doesn't match the collective. The courage to build meaning from scratch in a world that offers you meaning pre-packaged and ready-made. There's a concept in psychology called differentiation, the process of becoming fully yourself, separate from family systems and cultural expectations. It's painful, it's lonely, but it's also essential. The person who doesn't watch the NFL has in their own small way differentiated. They've said, "This doesn't work for me." They've prioritized their own truth over social convenience. They've paid the price of disconnection to maintain the integrity of their own experience. That's not nothing. That's actually everything. So, here's what I want you to understand if you're one of these people. If you've ever felt this particular species of alienation, your disconnection doesn't make you broken. It makes you specific. The world is full of different kinds of minds, different kinds of hearts, different kinds of nervous systems. Some are built for collective experience. They thrive in stadiums, both literal and metaphorical. They find meaning in shared enthusiasm, in tribal belonging, and the electricity of mass emotion. Others are built for solitude, for deep focus, for individual exploration, for the quiet satisfaction of understanding something fully rather than experiencing it loudly. Neither is superior. Neither is evolved or enlightened or more authentic. They're just different operating systems running different programs. The tragedy isn't that you don't watch the NFL. The tragedy would be if you spent your life pretending to care about things you don't care about. If you measured your worth by your ability to conform, if you mistook belonging for meaning and sacrificed your truth to achieve it. You don't have to watch football to be whole. You don't have to care about what everyone else cares about to matter. You don't have to speak the dominant language to have something worth saying. But, and this is important, you also don't have to wear your disconnection as armor. You don't have to turn your difference into superiority, your alienation into intellectual snobbery. You don't have to mock what others love just because you don't love it too. The goal isn't to win the argument about whether football matters. The goal is to build a life that matters to you using the materials available to your particular mind and heart. Maybe that means finding your own communities, people who care about what you care about, who speak your language, who see what you see. Maybe it means making peace with being on the margins, with being the person who smiles and nods during Monday morning football talk and finds their aliveness elsewhere. Maybe it means occasionally trying to understand what draws people to the things you don't understand. Not to participate necessarily, but to practice empathy. To recognize that what looks like conformity from the outside might be genuine joy on the inside. That what you experience as noise might be music to someone else. The Sufi poet Rumi wrote, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing there is a field. I'll meet you there. Out beyond watching and not watching, caring and not caring, belonging and standing apart, there is a field. A place where we recognize each other's humanity despite our different enthusiasms. A place where difference doesn't require defense and conformity doesn't require apology." Every Sunday, 100 million people gather around glowing screens to watch men collide. They scream, they hope, they despair, they celebrate. They find meaning in the chaos, connection, in the collective identity, in the tribe. And somewhere in the silence of an empty room, someone sits alone doing something else entirely. Reading, creating, thinking, dreaming their own dreams. Both are forms of being human. Both are ways of searching for meaning in a world that doesn't come with instructions. The people who don't watch the NFL aren't better or worse. They're not more free or more trapped. They're not more conscious or more blind. They're just on a different journey, walking a different path, building a different life. And on Sunday afternoons, when the roar of the crowd fades into the background and the house settles into its particular quiet, they've learned to hear something else, something softer, something truer, the sound of their own heart beating its own rhythm. And that ultimately is enough. Fade to black. In the silence, the faint sound of a Sunday afternoon, children playing in a distant yard, a dog barking, wind in the trees, life happening quietly, beautifully outside the stadium.